Hey, it's Dr. Karen Can here. Welcome to another edition of the Spiritual Medicine Digest. And every week I give you spiritual tips and some spiritual healing direction as well to help you navigate the ascension process with more ease and grace. So this week we are going to be talking about being breatharian by choice. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're going to be talking about how you could live in a human body without actually eating as much as maybe you normally ate in the past. So the other thing we're going to share with you is a little bit more about the 4 phases of the Ascension Cycle. So in past videos, I talked a little bit about the latest phases, and because people have been really interested with some of the models, the visual models, I thought I would continue on that theme and create some visual models for those of you that are visual learners, which is about 80 to 85% of you, to be able to grasp some of what's going on in the world. So let's start with the first concept. The breatharian by choice is what I call it. So there is a movement and a thought that it's possible for humans to actually sustain life without having to eat, sort of like a plant, sort of like being able to convert sunlight to energy directly. Now, of course, plants do it through chlorophyll and all that kind of good stuff, but what about humans? So a friend of mine actually asked me one day, one of my healer friends of mine, Kathy Holmeyer, she says, I've noticed that I'm just not needing to eat as much, and I'm around food all day. She's a master chef. And I said, oh, really? And she says, well, can you test me to see what percentage breatharian I am? And I had never heard of this term, but the idea is people, humans, in this case, being able to directly convert the ambient energy around us, whether that be from sunlight or from chi or energy flowing in the field, in the source field, to energy that we can use in our physical bodies for physiological processes. So I went ahead and tested her, and lo and behold, shockingly to me, she was like 30%, breatharian. And I was like, wow. I mean, I wasn't anywhere close to that at that point. So I didn't really think too much about it, but recently I did a 5-day cleanse with Dr. Kellyanne's Cleanse and Reset Diet, and decided to actually get the kit, and I did some Facebook posts on it because I really didn't know ahead of time what my results were going to be. But the cool thing was I was able to release 4.8 pounds and 5 inches, the inches being more important than the pounds in my case, because over the ascension process since 2014, well, actually more even since 2016, I've actually gained 30 pounds, and well, I kind of lost count of the inches, but but I know my belly circumference at the belly button went from a 29 to a 35 or 34. Anyway, it was up there. So I had been using various different diets just as an experiment, because I knew a lot of it was fluid, not necessarily fat. In fact, I had a DEXA scan not that long last year. So last year, before I started all this kind of dietary stuff, I thought, well, gee, let's check it out. My belly's bigger. What's going on? And interestingly, the visceral fat, the bad fat in the core of the belly around the organs was very minimal, like under a pound, which was amazing, like whatever it was, 77 or 0.89, whatever it was, pounds. And the doctor was really pleased. He said, oh, you're doing great. And I said, well, what's all this weight from? Now, source had told me it was fluid, but the doctor's like, well, I guess it's subcutaneous fat, So I tested, there was a lot of fluid around inside the subcutaneous area, inside the belly, around the organs. I mean, even my arms got kind of poofy and the face got poofy and all this kind of stuff. So I had at October, when James and I were, October of last year, when we were competing in figure skating, there were some challenges with lifting me. I was 142 pounds. In the past, skating, when I was actively competing as an adult, I was 115 pounds. So that's a big difference, right? So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do the modified HCG diet. Now, this is one where you don't inject the HCG, but it's a supplement from Des Bio or Desiree Biologicals. And I did the diet, and I've done it 4 times. Every time was successful, but I hadn't done it for several years. So I thought I would do this during the time we were training and competing, which I'd never done before, which I thought, wow, okay, so we're going down to 1,000 calories, all right, and we're going to eat meat, twice a day, and, X number of cups of vegetables, 4 cups of vegetables, lunch and dinner, do a shake in the morning, do the homeopathic detox remedies, the HCG, the whole bit. I did fabulous. So I actually released, after I finished the diet over 23 days, even after that, I released all of I think 13 to 14 pounds. So that was pretty darn awesome. So I decided a couple of weeks ago, I was going to do the cleanse and reset diet. Now I had maintained that weight release since, through Hawaii, Hong Kong, all the travels that I've done, which I was super happy about that. So I did Dr. Kellyanne's Cleanse and Reset diet and released the 4.8 pounds and 5 more inches. So I still have more inches on my belly than I would prefer, but this is all a really cool experiment. And that's how it came to be, talking to Source recently about this whole breatharian thing. So I actually checked in and I said, well, what if I didn't have to eat as much because I didn't need it to sustain my athletic life and my lifestyle. So I actually tuned in and just asked, well, how many calories do I really need for optimal health and wellness? And shockingly, normally, given my height and weight and everything, as an athlete, should be 2,500 calories or at least 2,000, right? I got 1,300. Now, I'm not saying you should all starve yourselves because I do not like those kinds of cleanses, that kind of thing. The cleanse that Dr. Kellyanne and I, what that we did was a bone broth based diet. So this is not vegetarian or vegan. I've never done a vegan kind of thing. Haven't been successful in the past because of my blood sugar goes, when I try to go vegan. I'm like a vegetarian wannabe. Anyway, so the bone broth diet was, kept my blood sugar really stable. And afterwards, that's when I asked, what do I really need to sustain health? And it was a lot less food than I thought. Now, I love food, don't get me wrong, but my appetite for eating solid food has gone down. Now, some of the vegan vegetarians, starseeds will go, oh yeah, that's what's supposed to happen, right? And that's probably it. But I'm just experimenting. So you have to see what's true for you. So I do divine muscle testing and I ask, what is optimal for my body? So what was happening was I was gaining so much fluid, and part of the fluid that, even though it was crystalline water, was that there was so much sluggishness in terms of my physical body not being able to process energy as quickly. So now that I'm eating less, it's able to process faster, which is really cool. So I'm able to maintain the weight release and not feel hungry per se. So Breatharian by choice is something where I, in my conversations with Source, realized that there are some components to that. If you are interested in maintaining health and even increasing your health, because studies have shown that actually intermittent fasting and eating less actually prolongs your life and actually may even help your telomeres, the little end caps in your DNA, actually grow longer. So eating less actually may be helpful. But I'm not talking about starvation. I'm not talking about deprivation. None of that. We're talking about high density nutrition, but what you need for your body, especially if you are a sensitive soul or a starseed, light being, starseed, that you may have to shift and change your regular habits in order to function at optimal levels. Now, the nice thing about the bone broth protein is that we can, like in shakes and things like that, is that we can maintain our nice little collagen, get rid of wrinkles or prevent them, get those joints nice and lubricated. So I'm a big fan of bone broth. So I'm going to show you what my conversation was with Source related to being breatharian by choice. So I said to Source, okay, so what if I wanted to be breatharian by choice? What would I need? What would people need to do that? Now, we actually have 3 different things that we, would be required in order for us to be successfully breatharian or mostly take in energy and chi from our ambient, environment rather than eating food for energy. Number one, you actually need the Breatharian human blueprint. In other words, the blueprint for humans, okay, not aliens, not something else, a blueprint for humans to be able to directly derive the energy in other ways other than eating. So you need the blueprint, so you can download and activate that to yourself if you do not already have it. Now, most what I call non-sensitive humans, so the humans that are not starseeds, not angels, not indigos, so on and so forth, they don't naturally have that blueprint already downloaded, but a lot of the sensitive souls already do. But you can just check with divine muscle testing if you have the blueprint to be fully breatharian as a human, and if you don't, you can use the Topican Healing Directive, and you can just download it and activate it, and then recheck with muscle testing that you have it, in this body, in this timeline. So the second thing you need is, guess what? You need to be. So being, this may be the most challenging for the average person, because in order to be fully breatharian, you would need to be in a state of being and stillness about 9 to 10% of your waking time. And that doesn't mean all at once. So for example, right now, I'm aware of the vibration in my body, and when I'm doing that, I'm fully embodied. In other words, my spirit is fully in my body and vibrating, resonating at a state that what we call the being state, stillness point, or 0 point. And isn't it cool that we can actually go to this 0 point of creation consciously, and you don't necessarily need to go close your eyes and get into a lotus pose to meditate. Now that is all great, and if you do that, awesome. I'm not really good at that, so I'm doing what I call stillness on the fly, which is my STOIM exercise, STOIM. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put the link to the article so you can read more about it, so you can go ahead and do that. So what it is feeling the vibration within my body and paying attention to that. And when that happens, my mind goes still. And that's my doorway into that being. Okay, so if you have the blueprint and you resonate at that being, especially 90-10% of your waking time, which is very rare for humans to be able to do yet, but I think it's getting better. The last thing is a technique that is Buteyko breathing. So this is by a doctor in Russia who's since passed away. I actually interviewed Patrick McCowan, who has a wonderful book called Close Your Mouth. And it's a really quick read about how to do this. So in Buteyko breathing, you're actually breathing through the nose, not your mouth. And you're actually taking in less breaths than we are normally accustomed to, because over-breathing can cause oxygen carbon dioxide exchange that is not balanced, fascinatingly enough. And you can test yourself to see where you're at in the scale by doing what he calls a control pause experiment. It's super simple and easy. Check out the book. It'll show you how to do that. I also have a radio show. So for the YouTube, if you're on YouTube, I'll post it below so you can check that out, that radio show with Patrick. So that technique will help increase the ability of you to actually bring energy and oxygen into your body without having to breathe like crazy. It's usually the opposite. That is better for you. And so these are the three components that Source shared with me that is required for you to be breatharian by choice, meaning that you can eat less but have the same amount of energy. Now, there's other people that I know, I'm sure you know, that are, do these water fasts and master cleanse and all this kind of stuff. Dr. Josh Axe, who's very popular, functional medicine doctor, he said he's tried every single cleanse on the planet, but the bone broth cleanse is his favorite, where he will just drink bone broth all day for 24 hours or 3 days straight and not eat anything. And he says this is the only cleanse where he doesn't lose muscle mass. That I like. I'm an athlete, right? I don't want to lose muscle mass. I don't want to get all gaunt and, I want to have my collagen. I want to have my muscles. So check that out. I think bone broth is awesome and helps to heal the gut and so many things. If you have autoimmunity, you definitely want to check that out. So it's a great way to kind of get into that whole breatharian thing. So you can also check to what degree am I breatharian, right? You can do divine muscle testing and check, am I 50% breatharian, 70%, whatever it is. I think last time I checked, I was a little over 50%. Even though I have the blueprint and the being, I don't do the Buteyko as often as I could. and that is slowly increasing. So it is not any wonder why the number of calories that I require has gone down significantly. And thanks to the cleanses, I think my stomach, my literal stomach, has actually shrunk, so that now when I eat, there's a point where I go, oh, I'm full. Whereas in the past, I didn't even feel full. I could just keep eating and eating and eating, and I wasn't overeating at all. But I just never had that, like, okay, my gut's done. That's all I can take. But now I actually have that, which is super exciting. Okay, so now let's go to our next topic, which is about the 4 ascension cycles. Okay, so actually the 4 phases of the ascension cycle. So there seems to be an increasing rise in vibration in the planet that keeps on going. But the thing is, it's not like a rise that goes like super, super smooth, like, woo, you know, it's more like, boop, 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 like these jumps. So I have documented like 4 consistent phases of the ascension cycle that keeps repeating itself. The length of the phases actually changes over time, and I'm sure there's some sort of fancy Fibonacci number sequence that tells us when the next one's coming, but I'm not a mathematician, so I just count. So the last phase that we just finished recently was what I call the expansion phase of the ascension cycle, and now we're into the resistance phase of the ascension cycle. So for those of you where this is brand new, I'm going to actually go over kind of like what each of the phases are, and just keep in mind that the length of time can be anything from a few hours for each phase to days for each phase. So it really, really varies. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you our little model here. So the first phase of the ascension cycle is what I call the rising phase, where there's a lot of high vibrational energy, and oftentimes it brings our energy up, up, and up. And the next one is expansion, where our abilities to feel and sense and be aware of more information expands. It's like our spiritual gifts expand, or intuitive gifts expand. So I call those the clairs. And I'll touch more on that in a minute. And then the resistance phase, which is what we're in right now, is where there's low vibrational energy that is ready to be released, ready to heal. This is a challenging phase in and of itself because there's a lot of negative entities or spirits that get uncovered to heal en masse. So there can be all sorts of issues sometimes with people and symptoms. And then the last phase of the ascension cycle is what I call the integration phase, where all these higher vibrational energies, you've done the clearing, you know, that kind of stuff. Then we have to kind of integrate all those new energies in our physical being. So let's start with some of the challenges. So in the rising phase, when we did this like 2 weeks ago, the biggest challenge is grounding. And here's the thing is, say you do grounding exercises every day in the morning. If we're in the rising phase, okay, for several days, then you'll have to redo that grounding every day until that phase is over in order to really optimize those energies. Otherwise, especially as a sensitive soul, it'll get trapped up here and you'll have dizziness and headaches and neck pain and stiffness and shoulder stiffness and numb arms and things like that potentially. So grounding, getting the energy into the rest of the body is your challenge during this phase. And emotionally, now I tend to be pretty emotionally stable and I see little bits of this, but some people really get affected. So emotionally, the challenge is feeling confused or lost because all this energy is now going up, you know, into the head area. And all of a sudden it's like, what's my name? You know, like it's like people can get really like lost and confused during the stage. So I just want to give you that heads up that if you're having that symptom, you may want to check what phase of the ascension cycle are we in and is it related? Now, during the expansion phase, which we just finished a few days ago, well, actually a day ago, from this recording, that the challenge is feeling too much. So your clairs expand. That's your clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairgustience, claircognizance, which is the one we all want, just knowing, right? But all these, especially clairsentience, that ability to feel in your body, can be very disturbing for people that don't have that particular gift, so to speak, balanced. So you need to balance your clairs during this expansion phase, and however many days it goes on, you definitely want to keep rebalancing. And with divine muscle testing, we teach you that in Topocan Healing Level 1 training. You can recheck your clairs, how balanced they are, and each one how balanced they are every single day. So during this phase, it's a really great idea to rebalance it. And the other thing is your awareness expands. So when your awareness expands, what happens is that you become sensorily, is that a word? Anyway, sensation, you begin more aware of others, and not just others. We're talking other universes. We're talking about, being aware of other things and other dimensions. So we need to rebalance your awareness of the now, being fully present, and your awareness of the whole. So those are the two things that we do often in this phase of the Ascension Cycle. And the emotion that I see a lot of people, especially highly sensitive people, go through during the expansion phase is overwhelmed. So if you're feeling suddenly overwhelmed, you might be feeling too much. So you might want to check how healthy all your 6, 7 different kinds of boundaries are, okay? And we teach this in our program. Or you may want to check how balanced your clairs are, and then rebalance them, and of course restore healthy boundaries so you don't get so overwhelmed with energies that aren't yours. Now, in the resistance phase, which we are in right now, as of this recording, we just started it today, the challenge is going to be, entities and negative things releasing and healing, not just from us, but from all of the world, mass consciousness, everywhere. So sometimes people have electronic issues. Sometimes they'll get really frustrated because things won't work. And the challenge is going to be to notice the anger and go into stillness with the anger. So not trying to get rid of the anger, you're just going to stillness, feel what it feels like in your body, and therefore diffusing the anger before you do something rash or say something rash. So being annoyed and irritated is very common during this. So I want to give you that heads up so you know what to do with that to transmute that. The downside is if you don't know that's part of the ascension thing, you are going to feel like, oh my God, so many entities are attacking me, and the world's going to hell, and and then you get all judgmental, and we don't want that. Just understand that this is a clearing process during the ascension resistance, clearing the resistance. So it can be challenging, but if you just know that ahead of time, then you can go, okay, that's where the anger is coming from. It may not be mine, and you can just go ahead and go into your being or do whatever it is that you normally do to manage emotions, whether it be tapping, acupuncture tapping, whatever. And then you can always, if you're having challenges, join our free group on Facebook, Light Warrior Network, so that you can get some support. Okay, and just say, hey, I need some support related to anger, related to this issue. Please help. And then every week we do prayer healings on everyone in the group. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so the last phase of the Ascension Cycle is the integration phase, where we need to be able to integrate all those new high vibrational energies physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, and dimensionally. Yeah, all those PMEESD. Okay, that's our acronym for that. So think, if you're doing divine muscle testing, think, is there something I need rebalanced here? Is there something I need to recalibrate here? Sometimes you have to recalibrate various different body parts. Sometimes it's energy anatomy you need to recalibrate. Sometimes it's just rebalancing certain areas. How well are the ascension energies fully integrated? You can ask that. Integrated, grounded, rebalanced, in my physical body, in my mental body, emotional body. So these are all cool questions you can ask with divine muscle testing. And if somebody has an emotional reaction in this phase, it's often feeling disconnected. Like you're just like, what's the point of life? I don't know. I kind of feel numb. And what's happening is that you're all parts of you are trying to recalibrate with the new vibrational energies. And so until you're fully connected to them and fully have them grounded and integrated, you might feel disconnected. So that might be your sign that you're into this particular phase of the Ascension Cycle. So I really hope that this has been real helpful for you. And we're going to, yeah, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe. Every week we do a spiritual medicine digest just to share with you what's going on in the spiritual world, the healing world. I have a couple of announcements at the end usually, and today is no different. So on Monday, my Light Warrior radio show, which is on Blog Talk Radio, we are actually featuring my former coach, Keith Leon S. He was my very first coach, and he got me through writing my first 3 books, which was super cool. And he has this really interesting platform. I've never seen it before. It's called You Speak It. And it's about how you can write a best-selling book, okay? We're talking best-selling book, okay? Not just a book, a best-selling book, without actually having to write anything. So you're wondering, how does that work? How do you write a book without writing? Okay, well, it's the You Speak It platform. So we're going to be talking about how, especially, people like functional medicine people, people that have these amazing wisdom to share, like how do you get that out without spending all that time in writing a book? Well, come on the show on Monday live. You can ask Keith some questions, and he's going to reveal how his system works to get these best-selling books out, to get your wisdom out into the world as quickly and painlessly as possible. So if you're interested in writing a book and sharing your wisdom, you definitely want to be on that show. So it's Monday at 12 noon Eastern, and we'll post the link below in the YouTube channel so you can check that out. And you can, if you're live, you can just call in live and raise your hand and ask a question, and he'll be more than happy to share with you how that book publishing process works and what you need to do. So that's pretty cool, huh? The second announcement that I have is that we are in season 7 of one of the telesummits that is near and dear to my heart, because the elevated elevated existence. Okay, so I'm losing my language here. That telesummit by Tammy Mastroberti is where I found my wonderful and lovely Tasha, who is my assistant. She heard me on that summit last year, and we connected. We have past lives in Lemuria together, and so she's my amazing, amazing assistant, and it's because of Tammy's telesummit that we met. So Tammy said, can we work together again this year? And I'm like, yes, absolutely, because it's near and dear to my heart that I met Tasha through Elevated Existence Telesummit. So go ahead and check out the link below on the YouTube video, and that you can sign up for the free telesummit. My presentation is going to be sometime in February, but there's going to be really great presentations and interviews, even before the one that I do. So check it out. I know there's a lot of information I gave you today, and I guess it's time for me to drink some water and to do some Vertigo breathing. I'm losing my English here. So thank you so much for listening in. Remember to subscribe if you're on the YouTube, and then join us on Light Warrior Network to get additional support, especially if you're a highly sensitive soul like so many of my tribe members. Until next time, lots of love. Bye for now.